Emma Stevens had been preparing for this moment for months, her first solo flight. She was a student pilot, and today was the day she'd take to the skies alone for the very first time. Her instructor, Captain Jeffries, had given her the green light, convinced she was ready. Emma was a natural in the cockpit, a blend of confidence and careful precision that made her an exceptional student. She had always loved the idea of flying, of being free in the vast blue sky, away from the world below. It was early morning when she arrived at the small regional airport. The sky was clear, the air crisp with a light breeze. Perfect flying weather. Emma performed her pre-flight checks meticulously, just as she had been taught. Her Cessna 172, a small but sturdy aircraft, was ready to go. The engine hummed softly, the propeller spinning smoothly. Everything was in order. "Remember, Emma, keep calm and stick to the plan. You've got this," Captain Jeffries reassured her one last time as she climbed into the cockpit. His smile was warm, but his eyes held the weight of experience. Emma nodded, her heart pounding with excitement and nerves. She had dreamed of this day for so long. As she taxied to the runway, the reality of being truly alone in the sky began to settle in. No instructor beside her, no comforting voice in her ear, just her and the plane. The thrill of it was intoxicating. "Cleared for takeoff. Runway 29er," came the voice of the tower through her headset. "Cleared for takeoff, runway 29er, Echo Bravo Alpha," Emma repeated, her voice steady. She pushed the throttle forward, and the Cessna began to accelerate down the runway. Within seconds she was airborne, the ground falling away beneath her. Emma smiled as the plane climbed steadily into the sky, her nerves fading into exhilaration. The flight was supposed to be a simple circuit, up to 3,000 feet, a few turns, then back to the airport. A routine for student pilots, designed to build confidence. But as Emma reached her cruising altitude, the unexpected happened. A bank of clouds appeared in the distance, rolling in faster than anticipated. It wasn't supposed to be there. The weather reports had promised clear skies. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself, adjusting her course slightly to avoid the clouds. But they were moving in too fast. Within minutes, Emma found herself enveloped in thick, white mist. The horizon disappeared, and all around her was an endless sea of gray. She could feel her heartbeat quicken. Flying in clouds, especially as a student, was dangerous. Emma referred to her instruments, relying on them now to keep her level and on course. But something was wrong. The instruments began to show conflicting information. One moment indicating she was climbing, the next that she was descending. "Mayday, Mayday, this is Echo Bravo Alpha. I'm lost in the clouds. Request assistance," she called into the radio. There was static, then silence. She tried again, more static. The radio had gone dead. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she realized the gravity of her situation. No radio, no visibility, and she was rapidly losing her bearings. The fuel gauge was dropping faster than it should. She had only a limited amount left before she would have to make an emergency landing, wherever that might be. Panic threatened to overtake her, but she pushed it down. She had trained for emergencies, though not one quite like this. Emma tried to remember the emergency procedures. Fly the plane first, stay calm, look for a place to land. But with no visibility, it was impossible to know what lay below the clouds. Trees, water, open fields? She could only guess. Suddenly the plane jolted violently as if something had struck it. Emma struggled to maintain control. The engine sputtered, then roared back to life, only to sputter again. She was losing altitude. Fast. Her mind raced. What had hit her? Was it a bird? But there was no time to think. She had to land. Now. The ground emerged from the clouds in a terrifying rush. Emma saw nothing but dense forest below, stretching out as far as the eye could see. There was no clear place to land, no fields, no roads. Just trees. She was out of time. With trembling hands, Emma prepared for the inevitable crash. She braced herself, heart pounding in her ears, as the plane hurtled toward the treetops. The impact was brutal. The Cessna crashed through the trees, the wings snapping like twigs as it plowed through the forest. Emma felt the world spin, her body thrown violently against the restraints. Metal crumpled, glass shattered. The noise was deafening. Then suddenly, there was silence. 3 days passed before the searchers found the wreckage. The plane, or what was left of it, was deep in the wilderness, miles from any road or trail. It was a miracle they had found it at all. The search and rescue teams had been scouring the area since Emma failed to return to the airport, working tirelessly day and night. Captain Jeffries was there when they found the plane. His face was a mask of grief and guilt. He had signed off on Emma's solo flight. He had believed in her. Now, her crumpled plane lay before him, silent and empty. There was no sign of Emma. The searchers spread out, combing the area for any trace of the young pilot. Hours turned into days, and still, nothing. Not a single footprint, no torn clothing, nothing. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. News of the crash spread quickly, and with it, rumors. What had happened to Emma? Had she been injured and wandered off, delirious? Was she lost, still trying to find her way back? Dragged off by some animal? Or was something more sinister at play? As the days carried on, hope began to fade. Emma's family was devastated. Her mother, Sarah, was inconsolable, clinging to the belief that her daughter was still alive somewhere out there. Her sister, Lily, was quiet, withdrawn, but her eyes burned with determination. She refused to believe Emma was gone. And then there was Emma's ex-boyfriend, Jake. He had been one of the first to join the search, desperate to find her. But soon the whispers began. They had broken up just weeks before the crash. It had been a messy split, full of anger and accusations. Some people began to wonder, had Jake been involved? Was it possible he had tampered with the plane? The investigation into the crash began in earnest. The National Transportation Safety Board, NTSB, took over, examining every piece of wreckage, every possible angle. The more they dug, the more questions arose. The plane had been in perfect working order before the flight. Emma's pre-flight checks had confirmed it. So why had it crashed? Then they found something. The fuel line had been tampered with. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but enough to cause the engine to fail at a critical moment. Someone had deliberately sabotaged the plane. Jake was immediately brought in for questioning. The authorities grilled him for hours, pressing him on his whereabouts, his relationship with Emma, his knowledge of the plane. Jake protested his innocence, but the evidence against him was circumstantial at best. Still, the suspicion hung over him like a dark cloud. Emma's mother was devastated. She had always liked Jake, but the thought that he might have been involved in her daughter's death was too much to bear. The tension in the family was palpable, the grief unbearable. Lily, however, wasn't convinced. She had known Jake for years, and though their breakup had been rough, she didn't believe he was capable of something like this. But if not Jake, then who? One night, as Lily was going through Emma's things, searching for any clue that might explain what had happened, she found something. It was an old photograph tucked away in the back of a drawer. The photo was of Emma as a child sitting on the lap of their father. Lily stared at it, memories flooding back. Their father had left when they were young, disappearing without a trace. He had been a troubled man, a gambler and an alcoholic. They hadn't heard from him in years. But there was something else in the photograph, a note scribbled on the back in Emma's handwriting. "Dad's back in town, wants to meet. Told him I'd think about it." Lily's blood ran cold. Could it be? Could their father have been involved? She had heard stories about him, about how he had fallen into debt, about how desperate he had become. Was it possible he had come back, only to try and use Emma for some twisted scheme? Lily couldn't shake the feeling that this was the clue they had been missing. She took the photograph to the authorities, who immediately began digging into their father's whereabouts. It wasn't long before they found him. living under a different name in a seedy motel on the outskirts of town. When they brought him in for questioning, he cracked under the pressure. He had been the one to tamper with the plane. He had found out about Emma's life insurance policy and had seen an opportunity. If she died, he would get a sum of money. It was as simple and as horrifying as that. Jake was released, his name cleared. But the revelation left Emma's family shattered. The man they had once called father had tried to kill his own daughter for money. But there was still one question left unanswered. Where was Emma? The search continued, but days turned into weeks with no sign of her. The wilderness was vast, and the hope of finding her alive dwindled with each passing day. Then one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Lily received a call. It was from a hiker miles away from the crash site. He had found something, a piece of fabric caught on a branch, a scrap of clothing. It matched what Emma had been wearing the day of the crash. Lily's heart pounded as she rushed to the location with the search team. The area was rugged, remote, far from where they had been looking. As they combed the area, they found more clues, a footprint, a broken branch, signs that someone had been there, moving through the forest. But then, the trail went cold. No more footprints, no more signs. It was as if Emma had disappeared into the wilderness, leaving behind only whispers of her presence. As night fell, the searchers were forced to turn back. Lily stood at the edge of the forest, staring into the darkness. Somewhere out there, her sister was lost, or worse. Days later, the search was officially called off. Emma's disappearance remained a mystery, a haunting question with no answer. Her family was left to pick up the pieces, to try and move on without closure. The story of Emma Stevens became a cautionary tale in the aviation community, a reminder of the dangers of flying and the importance of trust. But for Lily, the lesson was deeper. She had learned that trust was a fragile thing, easily shattered by those you least expect. Her father, the man who should have protected them, had been the one to betray them in the most horrific way. And Jake, who had been so easy to suspect, had been innocent all along. In the end, the people you think you know best might be the ones who surprise you the most, for better or for worse. And sometimes, the truth is hidden in the last place you'd ever think to look. As the months passed, Lily never stopped looking for Emma. She refused to give up hope, refused to let her sister's memory fade into the wilderness. And though the world moved on, Lily knew that somewhere out there, the truth was still waiting to be found.